Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about how to lose weight fast. And just to be completely clear with you, this was a trick because the fastest way to lose weight is not always the shortest line between 2 points that your brain draws, right? That is usually the best way to fail at losing weight, okay? So I hope you guys stick around. This is going to change your whole perspective when it comes to weight loss. My goal here is to make weight loss easy for you. Okay. I know a lot of people say that, but I'm not selling anything. Like, I have nothing to sell. I'm just here to help. Okay. So don't go anywhere. Watch this whole video. Okay. What is the best shortcut to weight loss? Well, why do you need to lose weight? Why do you have a weight problem to begin with? You don't have a weight problem so much as a patience problem, right? Probably a number of other problems if we're being honest. The best way to let yourself lose weight in an easy way is to cultivate patience. And I don't mean be patient because you're only going to lose a half a pound every other week. No, I'm talking about allowing your mind to get out of the freaking way. Because guess what? All this weight loss stuff, you think of all the YouTubers you watch, you think of all the products you buy, you think of all the fit people at your gym that you want to look like. You just this, what your mom said about you, what your dad said about you, what the kids at school said to you. There's just so much clutter and bullshit, right? All this stuff is clogging up your brain and you've reacted to it, right? In ways that I hope you'll be more compassionate to. I'm not calling you out. I'm actually going to try to get you to be more loving and compassionate to these things. But you have to be aware that they're there before you can do anything, right? So you're going to cultivate awareness of the patterns that have been contributing to your weight issues. Guess what? This is a great blessing because it means you're not the only one. It's not really even your fault. It's not, if it is your fault or it's now your responsibility to fix it, yeah, because no one else is going to do it. And this gets me back to my main point, which is that this stuff, it all exists inside of you, okay? Nothing from the outside is forcing you to put on the weight, and nothing from the outside will force you to take it off. This change will happen on the inside. And it's not going to happen from watching the right motivational video on YouTube. It's not going to happen from learning what the right diet is, because newsflash, there is no right diet, right? Any diet can work for you if all you need is the good enough diet, the good enough exercise, right? All you need is the next step. And guess what? Every single step that you need to take between you and massive weight loss is right there in front of you. The reason you're not taking it right now is because you're not giving yourself permission. You don't have enough belief that taking that step will result in a good outcome. And a number of other factors, including self-destructive tendencies. So, how does patience allow you to clean everything out? Clean what out? I want you to juice your brain of all the bullshit, okay? You don't need to drink carrot juice. You need to change the way you think, okay? This will change the outcomes because everything, you can drink all the juice in the world, it's not gonna do anything if you don't fix your brain. You can go keto, you can go vegetarian, you can go uber vegan, you can go pesca vegan or whatever. Like there's any diet you wanna do is great. You can go carnivore. But none of it's going to change the outcome unless you change the process. Everything that led you here to this point, it wasn't an accident, right? It's the result of processes and habits that have been basically driving the ship most of your life. You ever drive in your car and then all of a sudden you're at your friend's house and you're like, whoa, I don't even remember stopping at a red light. Like I know I passed like 3 trains and like I turned left 14 times and like I got on 2 different freeways and I don't even remember any of it. How is that possible? You drove yourself safely. Well, it's these mechanisms. Our brain has a remarkable ability to do stuff on muscle memory and habit and routine. This is part of what has kept us alive for millennia. But it's those same abilities that can get us stuck into ruts that aren't healthy. So if a habit is formed through a trigger, a routine, and then a reward. That's all it is. And you'll never erase your old habits, okay? So don't even try. But what you can do is create new habits and write over them. It's sort of like when you used to make like playlists on a CD, you can't totally get rid of the old information, but you can write over it. It's the same thing. So these patterns will basically control you because that's cool. Wickery, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm only here because my therapist basically badgered me for months to start putting this stuff out there. So mental health professionals are definitely had input here. So to be fair to you, you are a human creature, and as amazing as we are, we're also creatures of habit, right? We know this, but we don't really pause to really ask ourselves the full extent of what this habituation does, okay? So much of what we do that causes like going to work every day. You do a lot of that on habit, even on the days where you don't want to. So yeah, you may have habits that are detrimental, but you also have habits that get you to do stuff repeatedly every day without fail that keep the wheels on your life, okay? So all we need to do is make a habit transfer. And these are possible by first becoming aware of the habits you're in, giving yourself permission to change them, and then figuring out subtle but strategic ways to do so, right? Be aware of what triggers your habits. And I don't mean trigger necessarily in the sense of like a trauma trigger where all of a sudden you're having a flashback. It could be as simple as when I put 2 shoes on your feet, you bend over and you start tying them. Because the trigger for your brain to do the shoe tying routine is shoe on my foot. Okay, shoes on my foot, now I have to tie the laces, right? And then you get up and walk and your shoes don't fall off your feet. That's the reward. And there's also little hits of dopamine every time you complete a routine. So your brain has inbuilt rewards to celebrate these things if you let it, right? And this is one of the reasons why, yes, it's important to have goals, but your goals can scuttle your efforts as easily as anything because of how you relate to goals. If you give all your power to a goal, if you say, I will only be okay when I reach this goal, guess what? You just took okayness away from yourself. You just created a position of danger out of thin air by saying, here's my goal, and oh, when I get to this goal, then I'll be happy. You just did that all by yourself. And we wonder why we walk around absolutely terrified and hating ourselves when we are actually almost entirely responsible for constructing these patterns of thought that frame our world in negative ways. So often people ask me questions that are so entrenched in these negative frameworks that I can't even begin to give them an answer because I would actually have to sit down with them and go, whoa, like you're coming at me with a lot of premises that I don't agree with. So this is why patience is the ultimate shortcut, right? The fastest way to lose weight is to lose it one time. Most people, if they experience a massive drop in weight, put it back on, if not more, right? And this happens for metabolic reasons that come from rushing things out of anxiety and from the long train of emotional reasons, right? Why you can mobilize all your negative impulses that got you to 400 pounds. You can mobilize them to get you to 200 pounds. But what happens when you stop getting the Instagram likes? What happens when everyone's congratulated you and all the pats on the back stop? It all dries up. And then you realize, oh my God, I'm 200 pounds and I'm still not happy. It's not enough. And you just get so crushingly depressed that you completely lose control. And what happens? The old habits take over. Why? Because you never wrote a new habit. You just co-opted your old negative bullshit habits to create a good outcome. But I'm telling you, the outcome isn't good if the process isn't good. You don't get to a healthy place in an unhealthy way. That is just not how the human brain works. And this is why when people win the lottery, it usually doesn't change their life for the better, as much as we like to think it does, right? We've all heard of the person who wins the lottery and next thing you know, they're in prison for tax fraud and all their friends and family hate them. Like, what's happening? I thought money solved everything. No, because if you take unredeemed, broken thought patterns into the context that you're dreaming of living in one day, you will wreck it. You will reject it at every level. Wow, not getting a lot of people to follow along. People are not liking this. Well, sorry. For the 7 of you who are still listening, you're going to actually, you're the ones who are going to succeed at your weight loss goals. Caleb, man, thanks. I really appreciate that. Sometimes people, I brought this on myself. I titled this live chat, Lose Weight Fast. And so people just want to hear, oh, hey, here's this bullshit pill that you and I both know is total crock, but you're going to pay me money for it. And there was no notification. Oh, weird. Anyways, so this is how you lose weight fast. You get out of your own way, right? That's what makes it easy. And easy makes it easier to relate to everything in a less stressful way. And these things can happen like a river flowing downstream. Most of us are like people trying to push water uphill. And we think, if I stop pushing, how will the water get where it needs to go? And for most of us, if we actually stopped, because remember, the processes that got us here are keeping change from happening, right? Everything around us, we as beings are constantly in flux. That's why you look different than you did 10 years ago, right? We don't think the exact same way from year to year. These things can change. The only way they stay the same is if we keep them the same. We have to, at some level, keep choosing our processes over change. Why would we do that? For the same reason that our brain remembers where to find water or food, because we associate what we know with safety and with survival. And at the end of the day, we as beings evolved not to be happy, but to survive. And this explains so much of what we're struggling with in the modern world. We so desperately want happiness, yet we are basically hardwired for survival. And when we realize that so much of what's accumulated inside of us is actually pushing us just to recreate the same hell that we've been living in, right? Because so much of it is motivated off of fear. And what happens, look at those old Greek myths where someone gets a prophecy and it freaks them out, and then they end up just by trying to avoid that future, they create it. I think this is the Greek way of trying to understand the human psychology around fear, how we can create the exact circumstances that we ostensibly want to avoid more than anything. You don't want to marry a guy just like your dad, but what do those people always do? They end up dating people just like their dad. And because we're addicted, not so much to always chemicals, but we can be addicted to patterns. Why? Because our brain says, listen, we did this and we didn't die, so this is safe. Your brain at some level does not care if something caused you a whole heap of stress and pain. It knows that you got through it alive, and so it says, this is safe. And this is why we can, like dogs returning to puddles of their own sick, we can just return over and over to the same trough of nonsense, right? It's really sad, but we've all done it and we've all seen it. And we don't have to. And a lot of the way we stop doing this is not through beating ourselves up. It's not through really doing a whole lot at all. It's by allowing things to leave and by allowing new things to come in, right? This is happening. Look at the seasons. It's all around. I'm not making this stuff. This isn't like new agey, fluff either. Like, it's all around you. There's constant change. And humans are really, really good at adapting to change. But if we don't want to, we can also be really, really good at keeping things the same. You ever notice how culture tends to change one generation at a time? Because people have a really hard time letting go of the way it was when they were kids. We have this huge capacity as a creature to change. Look at the difference between your average person you'd meet today in 2021 versus someone you would meet in 1,000 years ago. Huge difference. And yet you can look at two people from the same generation and find great similarity, even across people from different backgrounds. The point I'm making here is that change often happens at the end of one generation. As that generation, passes on, that's the only way for their entrenched ways of doing life to truly end, so the next generation can make their mark. And they inevitably become old and stuck in their ways, and a new generation comes along. And their way of doing things only really changes the world when that generation ages out, okay? So we as individuals do not have to wait until we die to stop doing the things that we're doing. We have the ability to change. I don't believe humans are really basically good or evil or any of that. Humans are potential. We are clay. We can do a lot of stuff. It's just that we are hardwired to repeat certain things that keep us alive, right? This program kept me alive, so I'm gonna do it and do it and do it. We're the classic, if it's not broke, don't fix it, animals, okay? So, how does this relate to weight loss? Well, you are a collection of habits and beliefs and delusions, right? And I say that with with love. So much of what happens, right? Classic delusion. We protect ourselves from certain realities because they are painful. Most people, when they're putting on a lot of weight, they're not tracking their calories while they do it. Who wants to count the calories that they're using to hurt themselves? We don't want to know the calories, right? So we restrict awareness so that we don't have to be faced with it. We don't have to feel the pain that comes along with it. This is just one practical way that we lose ourselves to delusion. And a delusion doesn't mean you're insane. It just means that how you view your reality doesn't really mesh with actual reality, okay? And this, at minimum, makes it hard to interact with the real world, and it's stressful. And then when it doesn't work, it just reifies the cycle that tells us why we fail. I'm a piece of crap. This is why no one will ever love me. Da 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 da. Well, meanwhile, we're not failing because we're innately bad or useless. We're failing because here's reality and here's us way over here, unwilling to look at reality. Why? Because we're scared, and we are afraid that if we really look at reality, it's going to overwhelm us. But it's not. Reality won't overwhelm you. You have the capability to become fully aware of everything that's going on around you. And it's not like some superpower, but it feels like it. When you've been living in delusion for many, many years, when you actually start to become fully aware of everything you're doing and everything in your life, it can be horrifying, but ultimately you realize, oh, now that I'm aware of this, it might feel like a high for a minute, like, oh my gosh, I finally see everything I've been doing. And then after a while, you're like, but wait, this doesn't help me change it. And so you continue down the process carries itself out if you let it, right? Remember, this is not pushing water uphill. All these changes want to happen. Your human mind is slow to catch on, but it does catch on. Your mind will eventually figure out, in hindsight, that increasing your awareness actually made you better at managing and navigating the world around you. And your brain will look back and say, oh yeah, Isn't that smart that I told us to let go of that old survival mechanism? It's like, no, you didn't tell us to do that. You fought me the whole way. Okay, so how do you lose weight fast? Slow and steady wins the race, and you just don't get in your own way. And it starts with things like learning how not to get in your way by trying to seek out the best of everything. If you try to seek out the best in everything, what you're basically doing is excluding all the things that are perfectly good. Because by looking for the best, you're putting this insane pressure on yourself that you have to be the best, right? Probably there's a perfectionism at work in a lot of people with mental illness that came from, abuse or neglect in their childhood. You think that because you're so hard up that only the best solution is what's going to save you, which is false. By definition, any solution that's good enough to get you one step further is good enough. And guess what? When you start taking good enough little baby steps, you start getting into new places with new opportunities. And if you refuse to take this baby step that's right in front of you, you can't get to the place where you can even have the capacity or awareness to see all the bevy of options in front of you. Right? I tell people, listen, losing 200 pounds can be easy. And I know people they want to believe it, but they start throwing up all their reasons why, well, it's not actually, they're the ones who have issues, right? But I have medical issues. Man, how many people who are 400 pounds don't have high A1C or high blood pressure? Here's the help. I'm not a medical doctor. Okay, so I can't answer those questions. Those are questions for your doctor. But if you're asking me how to lose weight, the answer is always the same. Get out of your own way. Don't use your medical stuff as a reason you can't do it. The whole reason you have the medical stuff is because of these mental patterns. If we just keep using the medical stuff as a way to make the patterns more powerful, we're just going to keep getting what we've been getting. Okay? I had way more issues than that. And I see this every single day. People come to me and they say, but John, how do I lose weight? I have medical issues. And it's like, yeah, sweetie, I could barely get out of bed when I was 420 pounds. I couldn't ride in a car. I couldn't go to one of my best friend's funerals. I was bedridden. I was in constant pain. Going into the gym was agony, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I get it. I have huge sympathy. But it's our lifestyles that get us into these medical issues. And it's only a lifestyle change that's going to get you out. You can definitely use, medical intervention. But a lot of times doctors aren't going to be the ones to tell you, if they tell you to lose weight, they're going to be like, yeah, you could lose weight, but I've never seen anyone do that. So a lot of doctors have they're not the best motivators because they themselves are they're super depressed at the fact that they try to help people and people just aren't seemingly able to help themselves. And it makes a lot of doctors get disillusioned, And I know there's doctors out there that can completely back that up. I'm not saying doctors are bad people. But, doctors are just like everyone else in our society. They are somewhat baffled. They don't have all the answers, right? It's part of why it's so stressful to be a doctor, right? Everyone wants answers, but even with modern medicine, we don't have, we can't just flip a switch and solve everything. We can prescribe a medicine, but that some of the times the medicines don't work, and sometimes they don't work enough, and you got to find the right combination of things. But I think most doctors, if you go to them and say, hi, hey, can I work out? Can I eat less? Can I lose this weight? Am I putting myself in danger if I turn my life a different direction? Unless you have a very specific medical condition where, yeah, that's going to be probably a minority. Most of the time a doctor is going to be like, yeah, if you want to actually do something about this on a lifestyle level, I have no problem with that. By all means, go actually ask your doctor. I'm not your doctor. And so I think actually, a lot of times if a doctor sees that you are making steps to actually change your life on a lifestyle level, they will sometimes give you a little bit more attention. They will listen to you a bit more. They might even spend a little bit more effort digging into your actual medical issue, helping you get the hormonal balance taken care of, helping you get that right dosage of your medication. Because doctors have to budget their energy and their attention during the day, right? They're always behind. And this is psychologically incredibly stressful. They have to decide all day on how to use their resources for which patients in which way. So, medical issues, ask your doctor. But if you're asking me, it's basically move more and eat less. It's the same thing for everybody else. I know pretty much, if you ask people who have lost 100 or more pounds, did they have a medical issue when they started? You're going to be hard pressed to find someone who didn't. So, how do we get out of our own way? How do we make weight loss easy? I mean, obviously this could take weeks or months to really break down. What can I give you right now? Let me just think. I'm gonna give you guys a metaphor that you can take and do with as you please, okay? This is not scientific information. I'm going to err on the side of woo-woo, new agey stuff, okay? But I'm not trying to be new agey. I'm trying to be poetic in a way that will stick with you and allow you to figure out for yourself and actually tailor the principle that I'm talking about to your own life. How do you get out of your own way? I've said multiple times, stop trying to push water uphill. Notice all the times that you are reacting to the things around you. And start to notice of all the actions you take in a day, how many of those actions are geared toward solving some kind of problem. Okay? And over time, you'll start to realize, oh man, okay, I'm about to enter into a type of action that is in some way solving a problem. A number of things come into play when we do this, right? How we go about these things says everything about who we think we are, what we believe, our most core, most self-sabotaging beliefs, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about others, what we believe about the world, right? So if I, as a person, feel like I am a worthless sack of crap, and if I feel like everybody around me is just looking to take advantage of me, and I feel that the world is inherently unfair, okay, then I am going to perceive a different set of problems than you do. Because these things are going to trigger my baseline fears about the nature of the world differently than they will for other people. But all of us get tricked into responding to things that we don't need to respond to. Have you ever seen an argument start up in your family and just one time decided, you know what, I'm just going to see how long I can go without getting involved? And you start to notice, yeah, people are trying to pull you in, but if you don't start talking, if you don't take the bait, no one can make you fight. And if you weather the storm and just sit there with your lip zipped, the fight gets over and you realize, oh my gosh, I don't have to participate. This might be awful to listen to hear your parents arguing, or your siblings, or one of your parents and a sibling. That's a classic, right? And both of them are trying to pull you in to try to leverage you onto that, helping them win the argument. But you don't have to participate. And when you find this out, this is incredibly freeing because you just realize, oh my gosh, I'm getting tricked into jumping into these arguments because I think I have to be the peacemaker. Because I think these two will rip each other to shreds if I don't jump in there. I think that life will be chaos unless I step in and try to control or manage the situation. Now, so what happens when you leave home, you go to college, and 3 years later, you're at a party, and Becky starts sniping at, you don't have to rest every occasion. More likely, you don't have to lower yourself to every occasion either. So Becky starts sniping at Kelsey, and next thing you know, you're all of a sudden like, whoa, about ready to jump into it. And now, you're getting involved in an argument that you absolutely don't need to get involved in. But you do it so reflexively, it feels like it had to be that way. And if you've ever been around a really like manipulative or abusive person, and when you confront them with the bad stuff they're doing, they inevitably say some version of like, well, it had to be that way. I had to do that because blah, 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 right? There's always some reason it had to be that way. And we do this to ourselves. We use this as one of the key excuses to justify treating ourselves like crap. It had to be that way. Well, I had to get involved. No, you didn't, right? And this happens on a social level. It happens in our interpersonal lives. It happens in 100 times a day in ways that no one else around you will ever notice. What's a good example? Let's say two-week walking anniversary. Awesome. Let's say you're losing weight. Gee, good job, John. You found an applicable metaphor. Let's say you're losing weight and you get on the scale and you've lost weight every day. And one day you gain a pound instead of losing a pound. What has happened? Is this an innately bad or good thing? No, it's not. It's just a thing that happened. And the meaning that it has is purely the meaning you put on it. Okay, if the scale goes up, that is data. That is a number on a little LED sitting about 6 or 5 feet below you. That's all. Everything from that point, the beep, 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 boop, there's the number. Everything from that point is just a daisy chain reaction in your brain that really is so baked into us that we don't notice it when it's happening. But when you do start noticing what's happening, you'll start to see the blueprint of exactly the exact machinery that's keeping you stuck where you've always been. Okay? So the scale says a number that's different than what you expected. Okay? One question to ask yourself is, why did you have an expectation to begin with? Obviously, we would hope that we are going to lose weight, right? I can hear every single one of you going, but John, I'm trying to lose weight. Why would I expect anything different? Okay, why would you expect to get a certain result today? Why can't the results come on average over time, the way results come in everything, right? If you work for an hourly wage, yeah, maybe you make the same amount of money every day you go to work. But maybe some days you work for a job where you work more hours than another. Maybe some days, maybe you're a realtor and you sell houses and you work off commission or something like that. Overall, you make a month-to-month average and you know how to pay your bills. But it doesn't mean on every month, the numbers have to be the exact same. It would be like a realtor making $7,000 one month and then the next month making $6,000 and freaking out like it was the end of the world. Okay, but it's not, right? It's just 1 month. But if their perception is that this means the end of the world for them, they will react. And when we react out of fear, we are triggering our lizard brain, right, which is my loving way of saying we're triggering our fight or flight mechanism. Okay? So when you set up situations where if reality looks different than how you've decided it has to be, when you've projected an expectation onto the future, and then reality ends up being however it's gonna be, however it was always gonna be, then you freak out and think now I'm gonna die because reality didn't conform to my expectations. And because you think you're gonna die, you trigger your fight or flight mechanism. And so the way you respond is no longer dictated by the smart, logical part of your brain. What's responding now is actually, especially if you have deep-seated like stuff from earlier in your life, like actual PTSD, actual traumatic stuff. We're talking about how to manage self-sabotage. This is all, it's all in there. So just bear with me. One of the best ways to self-sabotage yourself is to create a lot of expectations that it's just inevitable for reality to not conform to eventually. One day the scale's gonna go up when you expected it to go down. And you're basically creating a ticking time bomb. It's gonna go off, it's just a question of which day. And now you have to deal with this emotional roller coaster of the scale. The scale didn't do it, it's all inside your head. And that's okay, because if you just stopped it there, it would just be a trigger. But now it's a trigger that you're allowing yourself to respond to out of a fight or flight mechanism. And so when your brain says, alert, 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 we have to respond or else we're gonna die, you get to say, okay, or no thanks. I'm not saying it's easy. I've done this, I have to do this many times a day. I'm not telling you it's easy, I'm just saying it can be done. And like anything, it can get easier with practice. So, when you react out of fight or flight, you are reacting in a survival mechanism, right? So, are you able to grow when you're reacting out of fight or flight? Are you able to grow out of your best self? No, because you're only able to do the things that you've always done. So if you're looking to break habits and create new habits, and you're trying to do it by harnessing fight or flight, if you're trying to scare yourself into changing, you are just creating a bigger and better time bomb, right? We spend so much of our energy trying to design a time bomb that doesn't go off in a week or 2 weeks. And all we succeed at is getting a time bomb that goes off in a bigger and more significant way further down the line, right? The bigger the clock, the bigger the bomb. And that's mostly what happens when we lose a large amount of weight, motivating ourselves in negative ways. Is this making sense that how we frame our expectations is what allows reality, the things that were gonna happen anyways, to trigger us into a state of abject fear, which then we usually choose to respond in a way as if we're trying to save our life. Now, if you're trying to steer out of the way of a semi-truck, is that the same way you should change lanes on the freeway? No. If you notice that a car up ahead of you is slowing down, how would you would turn your signal, check over your shoulder, and change lanes, right? But if you saw a semi-truck coming at you, you'd be like, okay? And you'd crash. If a semi-truck is actually coming at you, it's probably better to go into the ditch than hit the semi-truck, right? That is the right survival mechanism. But what I'm talking about is the way we habitually project survival level situations onto our everyday lives that are absolutely not necessary. So if you look up ahead on the freeway and you see a Camry slowing down, but you react as if it's a semi-truck bearing down on you, you will create an accident. And it will be your fault. Because you're responding as if it's a semi-truck when it's just a Camry. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you embarrass yourself in social situations, it's because you overreact to things? Why do we overreact to things? This is exactly why. This is why we overreact to everything. Like this is why when you see the scale and the number is disappointing to you in somehow, right? You created the circumstances for that disappointment. And then you chose to react to it out of fight or flight. And this is why people start changing things up. They don't stick to a diet long enough to let it work for them. This is why I get back to, what's the fastest way to lose weight? Patiently. The fastest way to lose weight is to lose it one time. To get out of your freaking way and stay out of the way. The way you get out of the way is if you're doing keto, just do keto. Don't freak out every time the scale stops and start thinking, oh my God, what do I got to change? John, what do I do with my calories? Like, I guarantee you, what I'm going to suggest you do is a smaller change than you emotionally are probably looking for. This was something it took me forever to figure out. This is one of those categories where I did not have this stuff at my disposal as I was losing my 200 pounds. I gutted it out. I'd been through so much that maybe I was able to gut it out with just a higher pain threshold than most people. But man, it was not sustainable, and it's certainly no way to live life. And I do not want you guys to have to go through that, because frankly, most people won't be able to. I feel lucky that I made it through the gauntlet of my own self-created obstacles. Okay, because I got to 200 pounds lost by doing a lot of things the wrong way. I didn't always have access to this more enlightened view. So, when you have patience to let the process play out, you will not be so stressed out. What's the best way to make the scale go up? Yes, obviously, apart from eating more, it's to stress out. When you stress, you just dump all kinds of chemicals into your body, right? Would you just inject Clorox into your butt cheek and be like, this has got to be good for me? It's obviously Clorox is probably worse for you than cortisol, but norepinephrine, cortisol, these hormones, they play an important part in our body, right? Namely in survival and our circadian rhythms and things like that. But when they run amok, they just wreak havoc on our organs and on our body systems. Same thing with insulin. People are so afraid of insulin. It's like, insulin isn't the problem. Insulin is an essential part of the team, okay? Insulin is like Barry in accounting. The place doesn't run without Barry, okay? But if you make Barry work the shipping dock and accounting and if Barry's having to do everything, if we're stretching Barry too thin to where we're all getting sick of Barry, like, this is what happens to your organs. They just like, whoa, insulin is everywhere. This is disgusting. You know, and organs that are supposed to produce one hormone in the presence of too much insulin start producing the opposite, the antagonist hormone, right? And this is how metabolic syndromes not everybody would agree it's a metabolic syndrome, but certain reproductive hormonal syndromes that are mostly created through hyper insulin levels, right? And why do we have hyperinsulin levels? Probably, bad habits, but also because we emotionally eat, because we have to overreact to perceived danger in places where there isn't danger. You're not going to die if you don't eat, 1,200 carbs in one sitting. And then we do eat the carbs to create the illusion of control over our environment. We spike our insulin so sky high that our organs are just drowning in it, this essential body chemical that is, listen, if you want to get buff, do you know what's going to do that? Insulin. Every muscle on your body right now, the reason you can walk around, insulin. Like, all the good things you have are there because of insulin. Like, insulin is not the devil. You know, you can see how, like, this is how we create these environments inside of our body that are direct reflections of our mental and emotional state. And when we start loving ourselves, like, you want to know the best way to lose weight if you have a medical condition that's caused by lifestyle? You could say, well, change the lifestyle. But that's like saying, well, what's the best way to change a tire? It's like, well, change a tire. It's like, well, so I just grab the tire with both hands and try to yank it off and hold up the car with one hand? Like, no, none of us could do that. And I wouldn't expect you to be able to just wholesale change your lifestyle out of the blue, right? But this is what we so often expect from ourselves. To change a tire on a minivan with no jack and no tire iron and no spare tire. So self-love, cultivating self-love is the thing that's going to be that spare tire, right? And all these perspectives, permission, allowing change to happen, getting out of the way. These are the tools that are going to make these massive mechanical things, you know, you have to put like hundreds of pounds of torque on a lug nut to get it free. And you got to do that like 5 times on most wheels. You have to generate a lot of power. Could you with your hand generate that power? No, you need a tool. You need leverage. And when you start to master these principles, they will act as leverage, right? This way that I'm talking about, yes, it's hard. I'm not ever going to discount. This is the hardest path you could ever walk. But once you walk it, you find out that you're free from all this stuff that has been terrorizing you all your life. And you find out once you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not going to die because I'm hungry. It's not pleasant, but it doesn't matter. I decide the meaning behind this emotion of hunger, right? Hunger was never the problem. It was the meaning I attached to hunger. It's the things I did reflexively, right? Oh, I'm hungry, so this means I'm going to die if I don't eat. So I have to jump in and solve the problem, right? This is reactivity. If you can react to a sensation of hunger with your fight or flight mechanism. This is why you go diving into food that you know is just going to cause you more pain and heartache down the line, because you're acting out of survival. So when I talk about survival mechanisms, these are the things that at a basic fundamental level, our snake brain is programmed to do to keep us alive. Okay? And if you decide that a situation is life or death, you don't get to choose. You don't get to choose because your system is hardwired to respond to extreme stress with fight or flight. This is how we survived millennia, okay? So you'll find that by cultivating a loving, compassionate environment inside of yourself, where there's space to take a breath and go, do I need to react to that hunger? Most of you don't need a wholesale lobotomy. You need space. You need the tiniest bit of elbow room to begin to go, wait a second, I don't have to react like a marionette on a string, like I'm being played by some puppet master. I am not actually mastered by my survival mechanisms. They don't actually run me. They only run me if I let things get to the place where we fall into fight or flight. So the way to make weight loss easy is to cultivate an environment inside your brain that is less stressful. How do you diminish your stress? Stop trying to control the world. Trying to control things that you don't control is a recipe for suffering. If you're trying to get your parents or your kid to act a certain way, if you need other people to conform to your wishes, you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna create a stressful environment, you'll get triggered into fight or flight, you will become reactive, and you will react not out of your best impulses or your truest self, but out of your survival mechanisms. You will be dodging out of the way of a semi-truck when everyone around you just sees a small, manageable problem. Okay? So when you cultivate a kinder, more gentle space in which you live, you will find that you have the freedom to respond not out of your deepest snake brain reactivity, like a caged animal. You'll be able to respond out of what? Out of who you truly are. Out of the best, most divine, most human part of who you are. The best. And if that right there sounds like something that's completely foreign, that's a good thing, because that means, guess what? Yeah, it's horribly, horribly sad that most of us went through most of our lives not connected to ourselves. But this is what we've been disconnected from. Every time that we shied away from our pain and from our darkness, every time we used food to cover up our feelings, every time we used this reactivity to just reflexively get involved with bullshit and stress that we don't need to be involved in, we block off what's inside of us. And when you find the courage to be with the pain and to say no to all the stress and all the reactivity, you get permission to access all the good stuff that's in there. And you find that that deep, dark dungeon is not where the demons live. It's where you live. There's a lot of power in this, right? On the one hand, you stop expending so much freaking energy trying to control the world in a fruitless effort to make things conform to your will, whether it's the scale or your job or the people in your life. You get to stop spending all of that energy. And when you do that, there's an equal and much larger benefit, which is that you get access to all the energy that you've been locking away because you didn't understand it. And the longer you spent without coming into contact with your true self, the more foreign it felt. And remember, when we're in fight or flight, we don't go for the stuff that's new because we're human. We're stupid, right? We avoid the new stuff at all costs. We stick to what we know, even when what we know is destructive, because we know it. Because at the end of the day, we're these people who lived in the forest, and at night, we sat around the campfire, and we spent half of our lives surrounded by darkness. And the campfire was the only thing that protected us, was the only thing that gave us awareness, right? And so we are biologically hardwired to associate the circle of what we can see right here with safety. And everything that we don't already know is dangerous. Whether it's the next tribe, one hill over, the place we haven't seen, right? And yet, all the best parts of humanity, the initiative, the curiosity, the desire to get to know other people who are different from us, the ability to share core truths of who we are beyond, language barriers and culture barriers, right? There's a racial, ethnic, social level to all this stuff, right? It's the same way that a racist person can come to know and love people from a different background by actually interacting with them is very much the same way that you can learn to know and love yourself by interacting with it for the first time. That you can know and love your hard emotions, your difficult emotions, and learn that, wow, I used to judge so many of the emotions inside my own heart because I thought that they were innately bad, because that's what I was taught. but it's only through contact. No amount of pressure, societal pressure, is going to solve racism. You know what solves racism? People actually getting to interact. People getting to have friends that look different from them. This is how it happens. So, this is how we weight loss in the context of all this stuff that I just spent probably too long going over. What is weight loss? What is going for walks and eating healthy, vibrant, fun, good foods? Exercise stops becoming exercise, and it's what it always has been and always was, which is just play. Moving your body feels good. That's why we do it. Exercise doesn't have to be punishment for the things you ate, right? We created that. Exercise doesn't have to be going to war, brother. We got to go grind, right? No, we create that. And we wonder why we spend so much time looking for motivation to go do these things. We're the ones who created the obstacles, and then we go around looking for ladders to get us over those obstacles. And then we wonder why it's so hard to lose weight. Losing weight is not hard. Losing weight is easy. It is the easy part. The hard part is taking down all the obstacles. And this happens as a direct result of your willingness to explore those scary places inside of yourself. All the answers are on the inside. All right, guys, I'm going to end it there. I hope this was helpful. I know I had a lot of stuff very broadly. Trust me, if you have questions, if any part of this didn't make sense, you can go to the Facebook group. You can talk to me there. I will either explain something or I will make a point to really address it and break it down in the next video. This is all just a big process of me beginning to share with the world this kind of stuff. Thanks, dude. And so, yeah, we're just getting started. I mean, yeah, I hope it was at the very least thought-provoking, right? Hopefully, at the very least, it kicks off more of your process. And the big takeaway is let the process happen. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do all this change, all this transformation that's going to take place. You have to let it. It's passive. That's the best thing about it, right? There's a huge power in letting go and letting these things happen. Change is all around you. Change is reality. Keeping things the same is hard fucking work. People say, oh, it's hard work to lose the weight and keep it off. You know what was hard? Being 420 pounds. That was fucking brutal. As brutal as losing the weight was, doing it the wrong way, I'd still pick that over being 420. And I'd certainly rather deal with this struggle of just living day to day at 200 and whatever pounds over either of those things, right? We're all aware that our struggle is a struggle, but if you asked us to trade struggles with most people most of the time, we'd be like, I'm going to stick with my struggle. You're welcome, Vince. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching. The replay will be up on the Facebook group. Link in my bio. It's called Lose Weight with John. We just hit 1,000 people today in the group. That's insane. I swear it was like 3 weeks ago that there were 6 people in that group. Yeah, and if you guys are on here and you don't know me, like if this is your first time meeting me, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here on TikTok. Post that there were 6 people in that group. Yeah, and if you guys are on here and you don't know me, like if this is your first time meeting me, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here on TikTok posting